All right, so today's video, we're going to be reacting to a video from Struth Gaming called is first or third person better in Overwatch Stadium? Sounds actually a cool concept. I've never really thought, holy crap, that played quickly. I haven't looked too much into it, like on like the difference, like just to give you like before we even watch the video, when it comes to me and like first person and third person, people always like, hey, like why do you play third person in Stadium? And I always say this: I've been playing Overwatch for 9 years, it's just a change of pace. Could I change all my stuff to first person? Yeah. I just like playing it in third person. I don't mind either or. It's just like I've played Overwatch for so long that it's just like a nice change of pace for that. But I could do either way, right? So either way to me has been fine. So here we go. Let's see what happens.
Most of the players in my games are actually using first person, and the general consensus online among Overwatch players is that they're sticking to first person. But what does this choice actually mean? What are you gaining and what are you losing by choosing either perspective?
Now, just
from what I gather,
I know this is a quick pause at the beginning. I promise we'll let it go through. So we recently were in an interview with Aaron Keller, and he had said that 62% have been using third person, 38% have been using first person. That was the data. Keep in mind that the default setting is third person, so that's going to sway those numbers a little bit. I wouldn't doubt that ends up being more 50-50 after a while.
people seem to think that in first person it feels easier to aim, and in third person you have more information. And I totally get why people have come to that conclusion despite it not really being entirely accurate. For years, I worked as a games physics analyst for Kovacs Aim Trainer, and for years I've been making aiming content and even aiming gear. So the impact these different camera positions can have on your aim and gameplay is something I probably know too much about. Stadium's third-person camera is the new and shiny thing, so let's start with that. And there's no better place to start than with these free hits you get when aiming or missing to the side of your target. And this isn't just a Blizz, please fix your hitboxes.
This is a third person.
This is a quirk of third person that is largely unavoidable in their case. One foundational thing we need to quickly establish is that your bullets come out of your face. The gun doesn't mean anything, the flying bullets don't mean anything, they're just for show. When we play in third person, we're no longer looking out of that face camera, we're in this offset drone sort of camera. But importantly, the true shots you're firing are still coming out of that face camera.
That's interesting.
The camera also pivots around it. If the bullets came out of the new camera, you'd have all sorts of weirdness like this shot hitting the target, despite our character being behind them and looking the wrong way. So simply put, that's why the current cameras work the way they do.
Okay, that's interesting.
Right, so what is causing these free hits? Well, let's aim at this little edge here and fire. Despite aiming at this thing, we hit Malga.
I figured it out, chat. So you know how I say like sometimes like when I'm on Cassidy, I'm missing my shots? It's because I'm too accurate, right? That's what it has to be, right? I'm just too accurate, okay? I knew something was up when I was missing my shots on Cassidy and Stadium in third person, all right? That's what it is. I'm just too accurate. Thank you for this video, because even if that's not the case, I can go with that now. Let's go.
If we swap our perspective over to first person, we can see that we are in fact looking at Malga. And if we take a look behind him, there's that little edge we were aiming at. Malga just happened to get in the way. The face camera shoots toward whatever the crosshair is looking at, and if the enemy gets in the way, it will hit them first. Therefore, you can score free hits like this. The effect gets more pronounced the closer you are to the target, and has basically no effect at long distances.
Wow, I never really realized that.
What, on the side of the target that is opposite to your character, or on the same side as your
I knew this
offset,
existed.
Whichever makes more sense to you.
I know when I react, I sometimes talk over on accident. That's my bad. It's just something I'm getting used to. But I remember when CarQ covered this. I think it was in Rivals at the time, where like it was like covering like the different like camera angles and how like if you aim here and there. So it's something I forget with third person sometimes, but it's kind of a good reminder. Like maybe I need to play around that way more a little bit, right?
This free hit concept may seem outrageous and broken, and I have to admit it's pretty weird and pretty strong, and there is something Blizzard could do about it, but I'll save the conclusions for the end of the video. The next thing I'd like to show you is why third-person aiming can feel inconsistent and a bit strange. And in my opinion, this is also why first-person players tend to think aiming on first-person is easier, and it all comes down to this horizontal offset. With this standard right shoulder setup and targets equally far away on the screen, it takes more mouse movement to reach them when aiming to the left, and less mouse movement when aiming to the right. It's almost like playing on two different mouse sensitivities at the same time. One for aiming left and another when aiming to the right. And this is why that's happening. In this example, we have our player character and camera pivot point in the center here. This inner circle represents the Y offset, so the gap between the crosshair and character. And the outer circle is the X offset, so the distance between the camera and the character. Imagine this is our crosshair coming out of the camera.
Now, when I watch this, the first thing I think of is this is why my aim has been missing sometimes in Stadium. I knew it. This is the picture. I was picturing this, and I'm like, I was trying to explain it. I'm like, that's what.
If I wanted to aim this target over to my left, I have to stay locked into these two offsets and pivot around the character. So when I aim to the left, I have to travel all this extra distance around it to reach it. And when aiming to the right, I basically get to take a shortcut and arrive there much sooner. If I was playing first person, it'd be the same 90-degree angle both ways. But because we are locked into these offsets, our aim is noticeably different depending on where we are aiming. Right, so that kinda sucks and is a definite negative for third person.
Yeah.
But it
Good news is I can remember all this knowledge and find every way to not apply it somehow. I'm gonna know all this exists now and still not apply any of it. It's gonna be great.
doesn't have to be that way, which I will get to at the end of the video. Third person just took a pretty big loss there in regards to aiming, although it's about to make up for it in a very big way. And that is through your perceived mouse sensitivity.
Alright.
Now, what on earth is that? If you can get onto Overwatch right now, you can follow along and it will immediately make sense, otherwise you'll just have to trust what I'm saying. If I jump into training in first person and just start aiming around at targets for a bit, then swap to third person and crank your field of view to 90. Remember that first person is 103, so it's still technically lower, but that's not important right now.
Yep, I'm at 80.
Start aiming around and firing at targets again. What do you notice? Well, your mouse sensitivity should suddenly feel lower, like things are slower or perhaps taking more effort and mouse movement to get around. What's fascinating here is that your mouse sensitivity hasn't changed in any way. You're still on the exact same value and the exact same centimeters per 360, but it feels different. Why is that? The main culprit here is actually with how fast we perceive enemies to be moving across our screen. Check this out. Our character is standing in the exact same spot and the targets are moving at the exact same speed. But the target appears to be moving much slower in third person because it's crossing over fewer pixels. This achieves a few really helpful things for your aiming. The obvious one is that slower targets are easier to aim at.
That's interesting.
While they're technically not moving any slower in the game, they appear to be moving slower, which for our aim is essentially the same thing. So that's a big win.
Okay.
The other perk here is that you can get away with playing on higher sensitivities than normal while maintaining that feeling of control that comes with playing on lower sensitivity. I would like to announce an enormous qualifier to that statement in that it only really applies if you are already playing on a competitive mouse sensitivity. For Overwatch, that's somewhere around 25 to 50 centimeters, the average pro sense being 33 centimeters per 360. If you're on 3200 DPI, 10 in-game or something like that, please don't raise any higher. Please. Alrighty.
I like how he put like some like astronomically high like sensitivity there, and it wasn't okay, you gotta lower that. It was just don't make it higher than that. It's like you've hit the limit of like when you sneeze, you're doing like 100 360s.
Lower targets.
Yeah, it is really interesting. That's what I'm saying. This is cool.
We have information and reaction time, which happens to have a lot more to do with aim than you may think. With the third-person camera, you can peek around corners and soak up all sorts of bonus information compared to first-person players. I highly recommend binding the shoulder switch to something convenient so you can better peek angles if you happen to be on the wrong side. I think the informational advantages here speak for themselves.
That's kind of cool, actually. I don't camera swap a ton, but like I can see why it's good. Oh yeah, this is really interesting. This is a very well done video.
Action time, tax, and aiming. In this situation, I can see this target on my right while I'm safely hidden behind this wall. Because I can see them and can keep my focus on them while peeking, I have time to place my crosshair and line up my shot. That's a much bigger deal than you may realize, especially if you get the jump on the enemy who doesn't know that you're about to peek. When you move out, you know exactly where they are, so you can shoot as soon as you're able to, wasting no time. From their perspective, when you appear on their screen, they still have to wait 200-ish milliseconds for their reaction time to even acknowledge that you're there. That means you have a 200 millisecond window where they aren't actively dodging you or fighting you. That's a huge advantage and makes aiming so much easier. Let's look at this scenario from a first-person perspective instead. Even if we suspect an enemy is around
you don't know where they're at.
We can't know that, or at least know their exact position to line up a shot. We have to swing out, and now we're at the mercy of that reaction time tax, where we also have to wait 200.
Yeah, but I have such a swift reaction time, chat. You know when I'm turning that corner, that bot has no chance.
Milliseconds before we can know where they are. This results in you both dodging and aiming at the same time, which makes aiming far more inconsistent and also makes the peak far more dangerous as you don't have that 200 millisecond head start. So where does that leave us? Let me start by saying that I prefer first-person perspective in games. I value that raw input and the danger and value of how you gather information. That being said, I play Overwatch Stadium on third person and will continue to do so because in my opinion, it's significantly stronger, especially with the increased mobility and craziness of engagements in this mode. I think that's a bit of a shame, and I also think players who are sticking to first person probably also feel that uneasy sense of nerfing themselves, kind of like playing mouse and keyboard in games that have really strong aim assist on controller. You do it because you prefer it, but you're also putting yourself at a disadvantage. While I think the current implementation...
I do want to say one thing, and it's funny, and obviously this could change over time, but a lot of the players I've seen so far in All-Star, now, I think Legend's the highest rank, but there isn't as many just because like the queue times are really high. But I'm getting a lot more of like the all-star ranked players now, and most of them are actually in first person. Now, a lot of that could be experienced with Overwatch. So like the point I'm making here is like I still think it's okay to play first person if that's what you prefer. Like they're like the advantage of third person, you can see it here clearly, like with the with the all the stuff that was mentioned. But I do want to reiterate that like it's still okay no matter what you want to play with. Like if it's first person and you're comfortable with that, go with that because I still see people succeeding with it. And you should be fine.
Of third person in Stadium is mostly fine. I do have two proposals that I would like to at least see tested that I think could offer a better alternative. And this is for Stadium only, not the regular game. The first is to remove third person entirely and increase the first person field of view limit to something like 120. That would maintain Overwatch's first person identity while also allowing players to get a better grasp of what's going on in the chaotic fights. The other alternative is to change from a horizontal offset to a vertical one. You can see an example of this in a game like Paladins. This removes that weird left-right different mouse sensitivity feeling. It does create the same effect vertically instead, but that's far less important or impactful.
I don't know, like, I don't know how easy it is to try something like this, or if, like, it's... I don't know how this stuff works. I would say, though, I still think keeping the third person should be a thing for Stadium. It kind of separates the game mode a little bit, and it's also just kind of like, there's a lot of players who, and we talk about first person, there's a lot of players who play a lot of third person. And another thing that, like, I think might be underrated here with third person, too, one thing that's underrated about it is that a lot of people, like, kind of, like, imagine, like, a lot of, like, people who, like, grew up playing, like, Fortnite, right? Where, like, your first game was third person. So you have a lot of players who, like, started with just third person. So it's like you also have a whole group of players who might like first person, but also prefer third person because they've played it so much. So it's like, I like having the option of both is the point I'm getting to, right? I can't speak on the horizontal versus vertical part. This part, I don't know, but I'm just mentioning that part.
Impactful. Almost all aiming is done horizontally, and because the characters are long humanoids, aiming a little higher or lower than you intended doesn't really matter, as you have a good chance of hitting somewhere else on the body anyway. This would also remove the left or right side ghost hits and replace them with a less
I can see why this
vertical version.
I can see this would feel better.
Offset also feels really nice for moving around the map and aiming upwards. Right now, if you aim up at a taller character, you can feel that your camera is sinking toward the floor, which looks and feels a bit strange. And when moving around the map and even fighting, your character gets in the way of what you're looking at, which isn't really a problem with that vertical offset. I think if they made this change, then third person would feel much more palatable and seamless without all that weirdness, and it would also be even stronger. Both of which would solidify it as the default perspective for this mode, which I think is a good thing. Offering the choice between first and third person is nice of them to do, and that should stay. I just think it's healthier for the mode overall if the vast majority of players use the same perspective and are happy about playing on it, rather than feeling forced to play on it out of competitive necessity. With the current implementation, my opinion is that third person is still better overall than first person. Does that mean you can't or shouldn't play first person? Absolutely not, especially if you only occasionally play Stadium and spend most of your time playing the standard game. I'd be interested to know which perspective you're currently playing on and why in the comments below. If you would like to support me and improve your aim, you can check out my Clawmate mouse mod, gaming sleeves, and more at struthgaminggear.com.
There you go.
And if you want to learn Japanese and improve your aim at the same time, check out the demo for my game Polyglot on Steam and slap it on your wish list. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
That was cool. That was a really cool video. Also, that's kind of cool to like be able to like learn something there. That's cool. Yeah, just to follow up. First of all, great video. Make sure to sub to the to his YouTube if you haven't. One thing I do want to point out too, like with the one thing I will say is I think a lot of players like they talk about the competitive aspect of it. Like I think a lot of players in Stadium probably don't even like. Most people aren't going to worry about that too much. They just want to vibe out. So I would say if you like first person, play first person. If you like third person, play third person. I do like the idea though of maybe like there's an easier way to make it feel smoother on how it aims. I think that would be just a good overall quality of life change to it. Again though, I don't know how much that impacts how it feels from like horizontal to vertical, vice versa. That's something that I think obviously Blizzard would have to do. But Stadium's been great. I love it. It's been an awesome time. So yeah, make sure to check out the video. If you like the video, hit the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube, leave a comment, all that helps. If you want to watch more of our reacts or other videos in general, little box right here, click that video. You know what to do. Hope you have an amazing day / night.